This is the Houston Football Show, brought to you by the Prime Social Poker Club and Inside Edge, with your hosts, Aaron Wilson and Jason Braddock.
Welcome into episode 10 of season 1 of the Houston Football Show. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Braddock. Along with me is NFL insider for Pro Football Network, and here locally in Houston, Texans insider for KPRC2 and Sports Talk 790, Aaron Wilson. Welcome in, Aaron.
Thank you.
And we also have Jonathan Danger Cole, one of the two producers, him and Mark Larson from iLogic Media. Danger, we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Cheers, my friend.
It sounds good. All right, well, let's get it rolling. You know how we typically do here, episode 10. We take a look back at week 3 review with the Chicago Bears game, and then we'll take a peek ahead to week 4 with Aaron and look at the Los Angeles Chargers come in to NRG again, as they did at the end of last season. Now, Aaron, looking back at this Bears game, main thing I want to start with, and you were at the press conference this week when Lovie answered questions about the 0 for 4 on the 3rd and 1 situations in this game. Take us through kind of how it was positioned and Lovie's response to that.
Well, one of the things he said was, let's focus on the positives, but there weren't a lot of positives when you have, that kind of situation where, you're failing in these critical situations, and your quarterback in the fourth quarter just, making bad decisions, open wide receivers, forces it to Rex Burkhead instead of Brandon Cooks, who's open on this occasion. Other times earlier in the game, he did try to force it to Brandon, and it resulted in an interception. And he had been doing a good job of avoiding turnovers until this week. And so, that's concerning. And, they have earned their record, the 0-2-1. They could very easily, and a lot of the players feel this, that they should be 3-0. And I agree. I think these were some very winnable football games, and, they've squandered these opportunities. My thoughts on Lovie's explanations, he's never going to second guess Pep Hamilton. He's not going to be highly critical generally of his quarterback. He was critical of the tackling, and rightfully so. And they gave up 281 rushing yards, and he was, definitely not happy about the linebackers. But at every level, there were missed tackles, D-line, secondary, linebackers. But, to your original point about the 3rd and 1s, you've got to have a better plan for these. And that isn't just on the quarterback. That's on Pep Hamilton too. So, it's a shared culpability for these shortcomings, Jason, and missed opportunities. And I think they're getting to a point now where some frustration begins to set in. The players know that they can win these games, but there's some things you want to look at in terms of fourth quarter. How tired are they? He does not substitute a lot. He doesn't really believe in substituting a lot other than the defensive line. So you're seeing a lot of guys playing every snap, and I question, I don't think it's lack of conditioning. It's just anyone would be tired playing that many snaps. And they're not that unusual. A lot of the league is doing that, where guys play a ton of snaps. I think it's a factor in everything. It's a factor.
Yeah, I think mostly those guys taking those heavy reps of secondary and your base linebackers. But even that on the base, we saw a heavier rotation with Jalen Reeves and Maven, Garrett Wallow, and Blake Cashman getting in the mix there. But I think you bring up valid points. And one of the valid points you brought up, you talked about the rushing yards given up. And I think you start to get fatigue when you keep hearing the team in press conference say that, hey, we got to clean up the missed tackles. We got to stop the run. Well, you're 3 weeks into a 17-game season. At some point, it's not we've got to. There needs to be results on the field. And I don't think we're seeing those results in these areas. Khalil Herbert, 20 carries, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. Missed tackles was a focus going into the game. It was still a problem and an issue in this game. Texans have the most missed tackles in the NFL. It's not even close. Do they clean this up, or is it more about personnel, or does technique, scheme? Where does the blame fall at this point? When you're the worst at something, the blame definitely falls somewhere.
Right. They were talking about getting into some tackling drills. And when I asked Lovey about that, he said, everybody knows how to tackle. It's about wrapping up and bringing the guy down. And, guys are getting yards after contact. He said it's one thing if it's like a 10-yard game, but these very long gains, it's not only the missed tackles, it's lost containment, failure to set the edge. And that's on the defensive ends. That's on a lot of guys. But the holes are bigger than they need to be because sometimes Roy Lopez, they've been able to lock him up at the line of scrimmage. Malik Collins is a gap shooter. Sometimes when you try to shoot a gap, you don't make the play. The hole gets bigger.
Great point.
So that's one of the bigger issues with the runs up the middle. But most of the runs are outside. And a lot of that is on the defensive ends, on John Grenard, on Jerry Hughes. You saw them miss tackles on Justin Fields' scramble. But very seldomly are you going to play a team where the quarterback is that bad at throwing the ball.
Right. Great point.
So this was just such a winnable game, and you don't often lose the backup running back, lose the starting running back, David Montgomery, to knee and ankle injuries, and you put in Khalil Herbert, and he's just as good, if not better. I mean, it's, I would say, embarrassing. I kind of wish I'd phrased the question that way because I think guys would have said, yes, it's embarrassing. They said it sucks. They said it's below the standard. It's unacceptable. Everything you could pretty much think about. And I think their pride is stung to be losing these games and losing in this fashion. And if it doesn't get better, there will be changes. And you saw the depth chart. Blake Cashman is now listed as a starter with Kevin Pierre-Louis on the injured reserve with a groin injury. Saw Garrett Waller play only a few less snaps than him. Garrett was in a lot on goal line and some other situations.
Right.
So they're starting to sub a little bit at linebacker. But the guys that are not getting it done, Christian Kirksey, lots of missed tackles. Common Grugier-Hill's got to make more tackles. They've got to make more big plays where they're stopping them at the line or for a loss.
Yes.
And they've got to tackle better. But it's a defense that's small at linebacker and relatively undersized for the interior line. They emphasize quickness. And, I don't know how well built they are to stop the run.
And to go back on a point you made earlier, Aaron, with that contain and getting those edges, a lot of times when these DNs are designed to go inside or they're going inside, there are linebackers or in some situations safeties coming up to fill that void behind them. And like you said, even these linebackers are giving up contain. As great as Jalen Petrie played, and he's young, so I mean you give a little bit more grace, especially how well he's playing and how quickly he's developing. But I mean the Khalil Herbert touchdown run, the first one, he spins off inside when he's the last bit of contain on the outside. So yeah, I think the frustrating part is throughout the entire team that even when units or players are playing well, they make the mistake. One person makes a mistake that is critical. And at this point, 3 games in, it does become intolerable. Now, going back to Davis Mills, you did talk about him throwing those 2 picks and on the road in his career, 5 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, protects a little bit more at home. 14 touchdowns to 1 interceptions. We'll get the Chargers at home again this week. We'll talk a little bit more about that later and how well he played in that game last year. That being said, these 2 interceptions, they were both tips. And Davis Mills trying to fit one into a tight window. Another one the critical one there late in the game, it does get batted by former Texan Angelo Blackson and picked off by Roquan Smith, who was just an absolute beast in this game with 16 tackles, tied with Jonathan Owens of the Texans for the league lead. All that being said, you look at the wide receivers and tight ends. Wide receivers are second in NFL with 5 drops. Second most drops in NFL. The windows in these games for the wide receiver and tight ends, they're very small. And Davis is trying to fit it in. Now, to your point, the Rex Burkhead and the tip Blackson pass for the critical pick late in the game. Yeah, Pharaoh Brown, he's looking at him, and he turns around. You throw that with anticipation, take the quick first down pickup. That's on Davis Mills. I completely agree with you on that. But grand scheme of things, the 3rd and 7 to Philip Dorsett, backed up in his own end zone, 3rd and 10, gets off of that first progression like he did earlier in the game to hit Chris Moore for a big gainer. This time he hits Pharaoh Brown for a big gainer there in the 4th quarter. So there were some throws, especially in the row road in big moments, and the interceptions have to be cleaned up. But was this as bad as a performance for Mills as the stat line says?
No, it isn't, because if you look at, like as you just illustrated, there were some plays to Nico Collins. There were some plays he made. Yes, they managed to take away Brandon Cooks, and I'm not sure that that's all on Davis. I'm not sure how great Brandon played. I wouldn't say this was to his high standard. He would tell you that. When you look at what happened here, there was a series where he was in a nice rhythm and he was finding the guys, and he looked much better than Fields. Who looked like the first-round draft pick, Fields or Davis?
That's a great – I hadn't thought about that, but that's well said. Well said. Absolutely.
Thank you. I feel like he is not hopeless. Because this is our climate, everyone's reactionary. Everything's terrible. This ain't it. He's not the guy. He can't do it. That's all you're hearing. What if he gets better? What if he grows from some of these things? Is he hopeless? No, I don't think he is. I think he can be coached. I think he's a coachable young man. I think that he has some tools. What would help him, again, I'm not a coach, but I believe this would help him. He needs to take off and run a couple times a game.
That's
if
fair.
He does that,
like
they
that.
will respect him a little more, and the threat that he might run. They need to increase the running. They need to play Damian Pierce more, in my opinion, than Burkhead.
Yes.
And if he's not ready from a pass pro or pass receiving standpoint, then take him out and don't have a back in the game.
But that's what's so crazy, Aaron, and I'm glad you brought that up. Burkhead, 7th most targeted running back in the NFL, 2nd most targeted player, tied with Nico on the team. This guy's 32 years old. He's not a receiving back. He's not a great running back, and the volume he's getting, well, his 16 targets, Damian's only getting 25% of that, and Burkhead's not even catching 70% of his 16 targets. His longest catch and run of 8 yards is less than what Damian has averaged, almost 9 yards, 4 targets, 4 catches, 100%. He runs just as physical and hard and gets you more. And with the quarterback struggling, he should be the quarterback's best friend. We're 3 weeks in, and there's 4 targets for your talented rookie running back. There is no logical reason for that. But speaking of Damian, some of these things, I want to move on to the rookies before we hit our first break here. Let's run through some of the rookie performances, grand scheme of thing on these guys. Jalen Pitre, yes, we talked about some of the errors, but the 2 interceptions, everything we saw from Jalen Pitre. What was your overall thoughts?
Well, he's been as advertised. It was almost like him catching a punt with the way that Fields overthrew those passes, but he's still there to make the play. And it's not easy sometimes to catch a pass, to make a play, to do a return. He had a good blitz for a sack. He's playing some very good football. You think about the tackling, it can get better. And again, these are, take it with a grain of salt, these are the Pro Football Focus stats. But I'm looking at the tackling chart, and I think this may interest some of our listeners. Jalen has missed, according to PFF, 8 tackles.
Right.
So he's missed 30.8% of the tackle attempts. Kamu Grugier-Hill, 4 missed tackles. You've got 6 missed tackles by Steven Nelson.
Yep.
And then Kirksey, they have him down for 2. And again, this is just from recent games. But you look at it all and you say, well, they've got to get better at tackling.
Right.
And
I think go ahead, Aaron, my bad.
Oh, but keeping in perspective, what do I normally see from him? I see a guy that understands the game of football, really passionate, really prepared, studies a lot to make those plays, knew that Fields might be vulnerable throwing over the middle. I think everything is encouraging about him because we've seen him also make some really good tackles. He just has to become more consistent.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that's kind of where I want to go with the grand scheme of things. You did excellent because you do. These are rookies. They're going to make mistakes no matter how talented they are. Now, we talk about it not to say, hey, this guy's a bust, or it's not going to work out, or maybe he's not the talent. It's just showing you where he's struggling now. And in, week out, you can show where he continues to grow. He's been missing those tackles bad the first 2 weeks. While he did have another missed tackle or so in this game, you can see him starting to follow in Jonathan Owens' footsteps, wrapping up more, and that being a focus. Those first 2 games, you've seen him throw shoulders. We saw it in the preseason. We talked about it then. So there is. Once he makes mistakes and once it's pointed out to him, he's humble enough to come out in front of the media and own it, and then go to the film room and work on it in the practice field and develop it. So I think the error is completely pointing up. And these errors, while he does give up that contain, I don't think we see him give up that same mistake like we saw on Herbert. You could see it in his face, and you can just tell the guy learns from it. I think that, the error is pointing up. He's going to be an exceptional player. Moving on to another rookie, Dameon Pierce. He was 7th in broken tackles this past week, 4 for 4 on pass targets and receptions this year. Also 2.5 yards after contact week 3. He's getting more after contact than Rex Burkhead, and this isn't a joke. Is typically getting last year and this year on carries. Why do you believe the workload is not bigger in the passing game? And we're going into week 4 here. Hindsight, we're way past hindsight. These are strategic decisions here, and the film and the data doesn't add up to why Dameon Pierce is getting 25% of the targets that Rex Burkhead is. And you asked about Pass Pro. I put 2 videos out early this morning of 2 brilliant pass pros from Dameon Pierce. He got 2 for 1 on the Jordan Atkins touchdown. Later, Davis Mills throws off his back foot because he thinks he's about to get obliterated from a blitz. Lo and behold, Dameon Pierce cuts across the back of the backfield, nails the guy in his gut, and Mills just throws it up to try to give Nico's a chance for a back shoulder. Nico recognizes late. All that being said, the film, the data, none of it makes sense. Make it make sense to me, Aaron.
Very great question and insight, Jason. When you think about what, Dameon's strengths are, it's breaking tackles, it's running downhill. He actually has nice hands and good routes, and he is physical, as you said, in pass pro. Rex is a little more of a polished receiver, though. He's been playing a lot longer, over a decade longer, and they just trust him in these critical situations. They also have a background with him, Nick Caserio from New England. And it's not like Rex is sorry. I mean, Rex is, he's solid. He's a very reliable pro. But I question, and basically, even though he said he wasn't benched, Dameon fumbled. He was trying to get extra yards. He
Twice.
told us after the game in Chicago where it sold
That's fair.
That's fair. When you fumble, Lovey's not different from many coaches. If you fumble, you're going to be watching the game from the sideline.
How about if you throw an interception?
You fumble twice, you're gonna be watching. You're gonna be on the bench.
How about if you throw 2 interceptions? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And it's tongue in cheek. I know you're not going to bench her. Right.
It's hard to come back from that because then the fellas, they are like, oh, Davis is not the guy. I don't look at him as the leader anymore.
And it's tongue in cheek, Aaron. It's tongue in cheek.
Oh, no, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm a little tired today. I apologize. But
no, you're fine.
On the humor. But it's funny. What I would say is it's a work in progress. He's played 3 games. The qualifier is he's a rookie. He platooned a lot at Florida. He was on his way, in my opinion, to a 100-yard game if they just played a little bit better and be able to sustain it.
Sure.
I feel like there are going to be some better performances ahead. This game against the Chargers is an opportunity with Joey Bosa expected to be out and no Rashawn Slater on the other side of the ball. Excellent left tackle from Clements High School in Northwestern, first-round draft pick. And, you think about the personnel, the biggest challenge I think is going to be is what they deal about Herbert, Eckler, and Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen. And those will be difficult matchups for them. And we'll see if they're up to it. They play a lot better at home, in my opinion. This team probably comes back and we see another competitive game. the Chargers aren't playing very well right now, and
they've got a lot of injuries, like you mentioned. So
a lot of injuries.
it'll be interesting. We're going to get to our first break here in a second, and we'll also break down that Chargers Texans matchup a little bit later here with Aaron. We'll table the rest of the rookies to later in the show. The Dameon Pierce, even with Pierce, though, put a final point on that. And going back to the comment, yes, it's being tongue in cheek, but the point, Holden, is that you're going to have these guys make mistakes, and when the fall off in talent's behind them, and you're absolutely right, you're not really going to bench your starting quarterback for 2 interceptions. But the point being is that these are pivotal positions where the fall off is heavy behind them, so specifically talking about the running back position there behind Dameon, and you're in a game you need to win after having 2 opportunities to win the first 2. At that point, slap his hand, bring in Burkhead for a couple plays, but then let Pierce be that bell cow guy, passing game, running game to get the win. The teaching moment is not supposed to be as big as winning. Lovey said that out of his own mouth a couple weeks ago when he said the focus on winning is more important, than teaching. And I'm paraphrasing there. They're obviously going to still teach and develop these guys. Now, we'll get more into those rookies a little bit later. I want to talk about some of the vet performances and get into some of those areas with Aaron next. But first, let's take a first break here with our title sponsors.
Come out and enjoy Houston's longest standing poker room with a stellar reputation for class and quality, Prime Social Poker Club. At Prime, you'll enjoy an upscale social environment, fully stocked bar, gourmet dining, pool tables, dozens of poker tables, and many other fun games throughout the venue. You can also join their over 21,000 members with a lifetime membership for only $10. What are you waiting for? Get into the game. Come join us at Prime Social Poker Club. Inside Edge was founded over 30 years ago as a data and analytics provider for Major League Baseball clubs. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, then you know Inside Edge. They were part of the data and analytics revolution in professional sports. Fans can now have access to the same insights and analytics used by pro teams for free at myinsideedge.com. My Inside Edge is a destination for sports bettors and daily fantasy players where they can find matchup-specific insights and projections to help make informed betting and fantasy decisions. Again, that's myinsideedge.com.
All right, we're back here on the show. Jason Braddock, Aaron Wilson. We're going to look back at the veteran performances from week 3. Aaron, I want to talk about this offensive line. And I thought it was key. You were talking about, you briefly mentioned it a little bit earlier when you talk about it's just like one mistake here or one play here. And I believe you're talking about referencing Dameon Pierce in the running game. And you're absolutely right. When you go back and you watch this, you can see there's a couple blocks Tunsil misses. One, a key one, him and the rookie Hairston at fullback, both missed and blew up Dameon Pierce in the background on a pivotal 3rd and 1 down there around the goal line late where they had to settle and kick the field goal on the next play. Titus lunges at a D tackle that spins and blows up a play. Kenyon Green gets out in zone, and Scott Quesenberry, and not exactly which guy to pick up. Kenyon doesn't see Roquan coming from the back, gets Dameon Pierce blown up. Quez has the holding penalty. In the zone, I mentioned, and on those screens out to the tight ends and running back, he was struggling to get out there in space to get to those blocks. And it's something simple like that on every single play. With this being the 3rd straight week, knock on wood that nobody's injured or anything happens with the O-line, but this should be the 3rd straight week since I think week 4 of last year, so a full year. Do you continue to see this chemistry as they were great in pass pro and in the running game without these simple mistakes of one person and separate people so many times?
Right. Jason, when you think about the errors that you see, they're not glaring, but they do compound. They add up. And it's the difference between having an 80-yard day for him and 120. And there's yards to be had. There are opportunities missed. And each week, they keep losing or tying like the first week. But, it might as well have been a loss. It felt that way, sure. They're at a point now where manufacturing victory is going to get tougher and tougher.
Right.
They're not going to be favored, to win. I think they're worst in the power rankings by most people. When they play the Chargers, despite no matter how many people are out, unless you tell me that Herbert's been ruled out,
right?
Which I don't think that's the plan. He's just going to play with it and manage it. Okay, you're not going to be favored. You're not going to be favored to beat the Jaguars, even though you swept them last year, because of the Jaguars' improvement this season. And that game, to me, a team that they swept last year, that's going to be the truest measuring stick that we've had, a litmus test or whatever, of this young season, once we see how they match up with Jacksonville. But, this game, it's going to be hard. They're going to have some reasons why they should be competitive and win, and there's going to be many others, like the Khalil Macks and all these other great players that are hard to match up with. Every week they have great players, but an exercise I've gone through a little bit is, you talk about the talent on the roster, Jason, who would start for the other teams? I'll do it, and then if you have an opinion about it, have you weigh in as well. Brandon Cooks, Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, those guys would start for the majority of the other teams. When you think about their guards, probably not. Their center, probably not. Kenyon would eventually start, but maybe not immediately on a team with an experienced offensive line.
Chargers have Zion starting this week, sure. So a first round probably. So, but I get
your point. Side of the ball. So we're at about 3 to 4 on offense, and then on defense, maybe Jerry will be a situational rusher for teams that have a younger, more stalwart defensive end. Probably John Grenard, Malik Collins, most of the teams. Probably none of the linebackers, except for teams that just aren't very good at linebacker.
Fair point.
Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley.
Yep.
I think Steven Nelson starts for pretty much every team. He'd be the number 2 corner. So you have a few guys. You've got makings of a fairly talented secondary, but it's not enough. And other teams have guys where you could say, oh, he's a backup, but he would start for most teams. Can you say that about really anyone here?
That's a fair point. No, I'm not going to go contrary to anybody you said there, because I think it's all valid. A great point there as well to kind of illustrate the talent around the league, or lack thereof, here in Houston at positions, but you also illustrate how they're building it up. And they did a heavy investment at secondary, and then they found value in the second wave or third wave of free agency with Steven Nelson. Great find there. Despite the missed tackles, I mean, he's such a great value in coverage. Now, going on the wide receiver position, the Texans wide receivers tied for the most second most drops with 5. Cooks has the most of those drops, the lion's share of those, and he's only got 13 receptions on 29 targets. By far the lowest catch rate of his entire career. And we talked about the lack of wide receiver tight end separation. They've already brought in Jordan Akins. They've already brought in O.J. Howard. Now, Tyler Johnson, I'm guessing he's going to probably be active this week. But what can you do at this point with this roster? Or is it just go back to the illustration you talked about, talent around the league versus the roster in 2022 in Houston?
I'm not sure that he'll be up because he doesn't play special teams. And Chris Moore is playing so well, quietly playing very well.
But Dorsett's
he should be playing more, in my opinion. That was a great catch by him on the sideline.
That's true.
He can make some things happen. And Nico Collins is also quietly putting together some good play. He's averaging about 15 yards a catch. It's a very high percentage throwing to Nico. I think they're going to have to start decreasing the targets for Brandon until it starts becoming more effective. And he's going to have to get to all of his progressions, see the entire field. He's seeing half the field right now.
Oh, great call.
Yeah,
100%.
That's an issue. But, yeah, Tyler, it's interesting because he's someone that I just couldn't say for sure that he would be better than Nico, Chris, or Phil. And that's, that's just my opinion. But I just don't see him being much better than those guys.
Okay, fair.
The guy he plays most similar to probably would be, he's not as big, but he would be somewhat like Nico.
Right. So depth piece to Nico there, that would make sense as well.
If Nico got hurt, he might be the player that's most suited to step in for Nico.
I'd like to see him. Even if they could possibly go 5 wide receivers this week with one of the worst rushing. I think it's the worst rushing attack on offense. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that.
Do you go back to him after Jordan caught a touchdown and was
Jordan's three catches, 4 targets, 31 yards and a touchdown. compared to Brevin, only 50% catch rate, 3 of 6, 8 yards. Yes, these are small sample sizes, but Jordan Akins looks like he's ready to play. And it's kind of freaky here, but all 3 of the passing touchdowns have gone to the quote unquote third tight end that was just added to the team and, and active. Let's say it this way, activated for the first game with the team in 2022 when they caught that touchdown as the quote unquote third tight end. So it's kind of odd where the production's going, especially with the Texans being one of 3 teams with wide receivers not recording a touchdown through 3 games.
Right. You look at the scoring distribution. I mean, they don't score enough points, period. They're one of the lowest scoring teams, and they're also a team that, they're good at scoring defense, but they're just, they have the makings of a defense. They don't have much of an offense. And in media and the fans and everyone, yes, we know that Damien's good, but we're still not talking about, regardless of whose fault it is, a lot of production. 80 yards is not that big a deal. And you could say some of it's on the circumstances. It's not on him. It's just.
Well, some is. He has missed a couple cuts here and there through the first couple weeks, but the dude had limited workload in college, limited work in the preseason, limited work with this team. So you can expect that. But he had one really, really miss. And it's the cutback that he's missing. But he runs so physical and powerful. He makes up with what he gives you, especially with the other options on the roster.
They bottom line have to be more productive. And, it's not an emotional thing for me, but is it just for the sense of, is it getting tiresome talking about the same storylines and narratives about this guy's not good enough, or this guy's disappointing, or they should do more with this one or that one. That's what we're talking about here. But there's only one number that matters, and 3 really. 0, 2, 1, their record. Right. And everything else is, part of the symptoms of the problem, but you either win or you lose. And, I can pick up any cliche that I want, but to apply to that. But there are so many reasons for the defeats. And ultimately, they lack talent. And I was talking with one of the players about this, and I said to him, my theory that their margin for error is way too thin.
Right. They got to win the turnover margin.
And he said, bro, exactly. We're not even close to playing clean enough football to where we should be expecting to win the games. It's not like it's on the refs. It's not like the other team is playing that great. It's on them. They beat themselves. And, some of that's on the players and some of that's on the coaches, but you have to be coachable and you have to make less mistakes. There's a lot of, I won't call it excuse making. There's accountability. And
yes, I believe so.
The locker room is good. They're good guys. They're very respectful, mature men, but you got to get it done. And
it's like you said, it's a results-driven business. And before we get to this break and move on to the Chargers, Aaron, I want to get your thoughts on a couple things on that defense. You talked about Malik Collins, we talked about Rasheem Green and the linebackers, but going a little bit more into detail on that. 7 tackles yesterday from Rasheem Green. He was so big. I don't want this to go unnoticed that he was so pivotal in run stuffing from that DN position. Last 2 weeks, not just this week, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 12 tackles. Also, Malik Collins, like you said, when he does penetrate, he's on point like a missile when he does shoot the gap and get there. He actually forced the pressure on that second Justin Collins interception to Petrie there. So these 2 defensive line guys, I just wanted you to kind of touch on what the team thinks of them and the performances they just put up.
I think that Rasheem is a complete defensive lineman. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's a very well-built 279 pounds at 6'4". This guy, I was surprised that there weren't more people bidding on him. He had 6.5 sacks last year for Seattle.
Right.
It's a good signing. A great signing is Jerry Hughes. Rasheem is a very good signing. And now that he's over the injury, we're seeing good performances by him. And it's the kind of things that when you lose some of these bright spots, they do tend to get overshadowed. But he's someone that is coming off of a good game and and he's part of the solution, not a problem. I think that Rasheem is commendable so far, and it's just a few things. Yeah, John Grenard and Jerry Hughes, they had really good games. They both missed that tackle. Yeah. Sometimes it's just one play, and that's why you don't get chances sometimes. You have to capitalize. You have to really be on point all the time, and that's what the good teams do. Right now, they can't call themselves – they can say we're a good team, that they have the makings of a good team, but until you actually win the games, no, you're not a good team. You're a team that doesn't know how to win yet. And the only thing I'm really encouraged by is the effort and the fact that they're competitive. And that's what leads me to believe that some wins could be around the corner, or they figure it out and they're setting a foundation for the future where some of this, standards that are being set about playing hard, which you would think, oh, well, that's a given. I don't think every team plays hard all the time. I think that they do. I think they give effort. The buy-in is good. And I think the coaches have to adapt too to what they're seeing. What do the analytics tell you? And the load management is something. You think about how much these guys are being used. Solving the fourth quarter, to me, is going to take substitution. And I can't emphasize that enough. There are some guys that need to play less.
Well, let me go into that a little bit before, and we have to get to a break here in a second, but I do, because with you saying that, this linebacker group, we saw Garrett return, we saw Blake Cashman get in there, we saw Jalen Reeves-Maybin get in there, obviously with Kamu and Kirksey with KPL getting injured last week. Christian Harris could return as soon as next week. We'll get an update from you on that, but can these linebackers get off the blocks? And if not, is there a fix there, whether it's Garrett, whether it's Cashman, Christian Harris? Do you think these guys can come in and make a difference right away?
I think there are, once they're all, fully established, there's a chance. I don't know if they would replace anyone, but there might be, some argument for plugging in Harris or Wallow at some point. And, Cashman, he's good, but he's more of a sub linebacker. I know Neville Hewitt, in fact, I believe this, would not miss those tackles. Neville is a hard hat kind of guy. He might hit somebody pretty hard. The biggest thing is Kirksey. Kirksey's capable of doing some things in coverage. He's a nice player. He's solid. He's not playing very great right now. He's made a few flash plays, but his overall body of work is not very good right now. And Kamu's not making the tackles for losses they did a year ago.
Right.
They're just not there. I don't think it's time to panic and bench these guys. But at some point, you do want to get a chase linebacker like Christian Harris on the field. He has missed a ton of time. When they do activate him from the hamstring injury, I don't know when they'll plug him in, because usually they take a week or two before they do that. So,
well, on that same couple other guys a couple other guys that's been injured and could come back as early as next week as well, assuming they're healthy and everything. Mario Addison, Tavier Thomas. There's other guys as well, but just focusing on that.
Tavier is pretty close to ready. I've been watching Tavier run. Talk to Tavier a little bit. Tavier is going to be good to go, and that will give them a – talk about tackling. He'll tackle you.
He will.
He'll hit pretty hard. Love that guy's attitude and energy and story. He's someone that football really matters to me. He has really high personal and football character. Definitely a lot of respect for Tavier and what he's all about.
How close do you think Addison is?
Addison's groin injury is not that bad.
Okay.
I think he could be back soon. The problem is going to be, do you need him? Because they almost overloaded the positions at the defensive end spot.
Right.
So is he going to be up? I would think that he'd probably be up instead of Damone Harris. But, Levy made a great point the other day. I got to give him a lot of credit for this, because people obsess about, why isn't this guy playing? What about this guy? You can only have so many guys up.
Yeah.
And you think about what they have up. Damone Harris played, but he played one snap.
Yeah.
So it's like
him, and actually on that one snap, him and I forgot who were the other. Maybe it was Ogbo. Both DNs squished the pocket and forced Fields out, but nobody was there to stop him after he was squeezed out the pocket. So it was a good rep for him.
It really was. I mean, Damone's a good football player, and you hope that everybody can play more, but there's only so many snaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
you don't want to take John Grenard and Jerry Hughes off the field too much.
Right, and you had to take them guys off to get Rasheem Green in there because he was just so pivotal against the run this
I
week. But
think that what might help them a little bit is having Kurt Heinisch
yes,
once he's
they've
able to
got to
be
get
active
him back.
again.
That's
Yeah,
crazy to say. You have to have an undrafted free agent back, but they have to get him back.
he's a real player. And Michael Dwumfor, he'll make some plays. He
Yes,
doesn't
he will. You can't
necessarily
move
look like the
him.
guy that
But you
is
can't
like
move him.
he's tough. So is
Yeah.
and Thomas Booker has shown me some things. They have the makings of a good defensive line. They make a good secondary. I think the weak link on the defense right now is the linebacker position.
Yeah.
And that's not what's supposed to happen in this Lovie Smith defense.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, you brought in so many guys. You brought in 58 of them. So I mean, and you kept 25. So you would expect 3 of them to hit. Obviously, hyperbole there. But last thing before the break, Cedric O'Brahe. You had the news earlier that he was signed off the Texans practice squad. He had previously gone onto the injured list on the practice squad. Deculus, had the injury as well. So you're really talking about 3 tackles on the team here, none on the practice squad now. What are your thoughts at the position? Is something they're going to have to go put a priority focus on to bring in somebody that can actually play in case there's an injury.
Right. I mean, they worked out several safeties the other day, like Bubba Bolden and Brady Breeze, and they looked at wide receivers. They did not look at any running backs. And, I think there's always tackles on the street that you can get for the practice squad. I don't think it's going to be that tough. I mean, Deculus is sort of week to week. He's in a walking boot. He's injured his foot. He doesn't.
That's the update I needed. Okay, so you've got that. Unless an injury hits, they still feel pretty.
But
confident
I don't know when he'll be able to practice. I don't think it's this week. And maybe it's next week. Maybe it's the week after that. But arguably, could he be placed on injured reserve? Yeah, I mean, you could. I think it's probably where he's not going to be effective for 3 more weeks. So that's something that they could look at. When I think about their depth, and you look at the practice squad, you just want to make sure you have enough guys to give you the look in practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they'll find someone. I mean, and there's some guys that play guard, like Trevor Wallace-Sims. Can he also line up a tackle? Sure. Yeah, he could do that. They could bring back some guys that have been here before or just look on the street. But, they have Jordan Steckler as interior for sure. That's all he really plays. He's played a tiny bit of tackle.
And they promoted Morrissey.
Jimmy's, and he stepped in for one when Scott Quesenberg got poked in the eye. But, they probably need one.
And that's a great illustration there, Aaron. I'll hit the break right after this, but that's a great illustration of just one thing going wrong on each play. When he gets poked in the eye, his man ends up making the tackle, if I'm not mistaken, and everything was blocked so well on there. And there's so many instances, but I think that's a great illustration of how freaky you've got to have the perfect chemistry, especially when you run so much zone looks in the running game. You've got to have that chemistry, and I think it's pivotal that for the first time in a year, we're going to have the same starting lineup, knock on wood, for 3 straight weeks here in Houston. I think that will help gel that chemistry and not have guys kind of looking around at who they pick up in zone. That comes with feel. So we won't hit too hard on that. But let me hit a quick break. We'll come back, let Aaron Wilson break down this Chargers game. And so I want to take time out to talk about our title sponsors, Prime Social Poker Club. This is Houston's longest standing poker room with a stellar reputation for class and quality. And we've kind of partnered with them, not only with them as the title sponsor here on the Houston Football Show, but they also have a live streaming table. It's so cool. I went out there a week ago and got on their Friday broadcast. I will continuously pop on their broadcast on Friday. So if you want to come out to Prime and say, hey, or if you want to watch some hands and get professional advice from Reese, who's a poker player that works, former professional poker player that works at Prime. And he'll run the X's and O's, if you will, of the broadcast there as they have the live streaming table like you would see at the World Series of Poker. You got the percentages showing up there, the hands and all that. You can it's like taking a college course right here in Houston every Friday, just watching that stream. And like I said, the Houston Football Show is paired with Prime Social, and I'll jump on that broadcast, that stream every Friday night. So I'll learn right there with you. to be one of the best in poker. And when you want to go play live, go out the Prime Social Poker Club right here at 781 Westheimer here locally in Houston. Over 21,000 members, opens 10 a.m. daily and doesn't close until you leave. They just put wraps the wraps on the first H-Town Poker Open. Tremendous success. So whether you're playing cash, tourney, or if you want to get out there and get on the streaming table, whatever it is, they have restaurant, bar, live games, all of that right there at Prime Social Poker Club. All right, getting back into the show, Aaron Wilson. Aaron, before we get into kind of the X's and O's and the breakdown, how you see this game going with the Chargers, and then we'll let you go about your way. I want to look at the injuries that you talked about. Justin Herbert played with fractured ribs last week after the week 1 game. The week 2 game. Keenan Allen, hamstring injury, could return to practice this week. Does he play? Corey Lindsey, the center, has been sidelined with a knee injury. He's expected to return to practice this week. But Joey Bosa, who you talked about earlier, they said he's probably not going on IR with a groin injury week to week, but it doesn't sound like he's playing this week against the Texans, which the Titus and Tunsil get a break with that one. J.C. Jackson, another key cornerback on this talented defense, is dealing with inflammation in his ankle. Didn't play last week, had surgery on that ankle before the season. Don't know if he'll be back this week or not. And then Rashawn Slater, the talented left tackle, he's got a ruptured bicep tendon, out for this game. All the injuries. Can the Texans take advantage of it this time? Because it seems like, maybe not to this level, but it seems like they kept getting the benefit with the injuries week in through the first 4 weeks of the season.
Right. They have to capitalize when you have great players like Joey Bosa and Rashawn Slater not on the field. That creates opportunities. It creates matchup issues because the backup is never to the caliber of the starter. And that gives them a chance to, do you double Khalil Mack? Do you chip him? What do you do with him? I mean, you didn't have that luxury before because you had both those guys as threats. And they have some good linebackers. They've got Derwin James. He's someone that you really have to be cognizant of if you're Davis Mills when you're throwing the football. And, we'll see if J.C. Jackson, if he's, feeling better this week, if he's closer to being who he is. He's actually someone that, recall a year ago, Davis Mills beat him and Devin McCourty, 2 pretty good Patriots, threw it right between them to Chris Moore for a long touchdown. He can do that again. I think their personnel is strong. Their coach kind of overthinks it a little bit. He's very intellectual, Brandon Staley. But you look overall at it, and there are going to be some chances for them to be in this game. And I would think what they come up with for a game plan is try to run it down their throat and see if they can make that work. And see, can this be a game where they do something similar to what Chicago was doing?
Yeah,
maybe there should be less throws for Davis. Maybe the numbers need to go down. Maybe they really need to not to say we're a running team, but actually be a running team.
I think right, absolutely. Where let the actions back up the words, especially when you're 4 weeks into the year. And I think what plays to their favor is not only the injuries on the offensive line for the Chargers this week, but also Austin Eckler, out of all the qualified backs, his 2.5 yards per carry is dead last. The Chargers are dead last in their rushing attack. So this week, your weakness,
he's got almost no help, by the way, behind him with Josh Kennedy, Isaiah Spiller, and Sony Michel. He has to be high volume, and it's been pretty topsy-turvy. He's really good. Would it surprise me if he upped that average this week? No, it would not. I think he could do well against the Texans.
This might be selfish, Aaron, but what I want to see in this game is more man coverage, and the matchup I want to watch is Derek Stingley Jr.'s against Mike Williams. That's a matchup worth the price of admission. And also
gives you a better chance against the big wide receiver.
Yes.
Whereas I think Steve Nelson, who's an old crafty pro, may be able to understand Keenan Allen's very slick routes and match up with him. He's also played against him before. So I like Steven's chances better. But I don't know if they'll do the follow thing.
Right.
You've seen already, like he held his own against Cortland Sutton. And then this past game, it really wasn't much of a passing game. But
He showed well outside. It's more than just coverage, and outside of that, in this Bears game, he showed extremely well. He looked confident.
Good tackling.
The tackling is just flawless for a team that has the most mixed tackle. For your rookie corner for it to be his strength, and the angle he takes, the speed he uses, the active hands when they're trying to stiff arm him, the combative, the way he took on a pulling guard and sacrificed his entire body to free up his linebackers. Him and Petrie take on pulling guards and linemen better than the Texans linebackers are, and these are rookie secondary players. So
yes, we're not seeing a lot of like the Hard Knocks guy, Malcolm Rodriguez.
Right, one of
that thump the guards the way he does. Yeah,
exactly. You don't have that guy flying through there,
but
opening it up for everyone else, and it's not there from that linebacker group right now. All right, so I'd like to see Stingley on Williams, like you said. Steven Nelson, if Keenan Allen's playing in this one, Desmond King played.
Stingley
really
has
well.
0 missed tackles, by the way. So yeah, you're dead on about that. He's making his plays.
Yeah, he's impressive. He's well-rounded, but when you say well-rounded, usually it means an average player, like a utility player in baseball. He's such a well-rounded player. This guy's well-rounded with greatness, and if he hits on his potential, and he's just getting better week in, week after. Again, let me say it for what it's worth. We know he wasn't targeted a lot this past week, and it was Fields throwing at it, and the talent that was. I get it all. But you can only show what you show. He looked more confident. He's growing each week. And what he shows in the skill set, this guy could be one of the best in the league. So, I mean, there with him and Petrie and Pierce, like this could be a hell of a.
And by the way, Rasheem Green has the highest, according to Pro Football Focus, stop percentage on tackling.
So there you go. So marrying the stats with what we're seeing on the film there. So that doesn't surprise at all.
The film doesn't lie. And the stats sometimes, can be skewed. But I think generally they tell a story, and you put them together, and it creates a picture.
Let me ask you that about the stats before I let you go, Aaron.
Yeah.
I'll get your thoughts on the game, like maybe not a prediction, but which way do you think it goes here? But Davis Mills at home, is this just too much stats, or is there truth to this? 14 touchdowns, 1 interception in his home splits, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Part of that split in his last home game against the Chargers last year, where he beat Herbert without Brandon Cooks playing in the game. Rex Burkhead as the top back. Was that a fluke game? Was he just feeling it? Everything fell right? Or is this guy legitimately a quality quarterback at home, and does that translate to this year?
It's a symptom of being a young quarterback, and they, tend to, I would say, play better in home games. And it's just, he's still developing. It's just very much like you look at, where he is in his development, and he's more comfortable at home. And, I don't know if he would – maybe an interesting question, actually, to ask Davis on Wednesday to see what he thinks about that. But, hopefully you or someone else puts in that question to him, because I still want to hear his answer.
Yeah, that's the key. It's the content's the key, not who asked the question. So, I mean, I definitely would like to hear that answer as well, too. Aaron, I appreciate your time. Before I let you get out of here, how do you see this game playing out, whatever you're comfortable with, whether it's a prediction or just how you think it plays?
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just a gentleman's bet. Let's do it with you. Maybe we'll do a Starbucks on it. How about that?
Wait, who are you taking? I mean, before I agree, who
I'm
are you taking?
Take Houston.
Wow.
I'm going to pick Texans for the upset.
Wow, I like it, but I can't get there with you, so I'll do the bet. I'll do the bet, but I'm not a coffee guy. I'm a sweet tea guy.
They have a tea.
Oh, no, I only do Raising Cane's. I'm bougie with it. I get a Raising Cane sweet tea for every day for like 3 years, except when they're closed for holidays.
All right, well, how about this?
A little OCD.
I live by a Raising Cane, so if
I
lose, I can still go to their drive-thru and get you one.
All right, large sweet tea, light ice, please.
And if you want some chicken tenders too, I'll throw
yeah. Okay, let's do it. We'll do a combo because Starbucks
maybe we make
coffee.
This a little new fun tradition.
Yeah, exactly. What's a Starbucks coffee usually cost? Like $25. So I think a Raising Cane's combo for a coffee.
I'll take a venti green tea if they
You're going to have to text it to me. I don't even know. It sounds like you're speaking a different language to me. I don't know if you're cursing me or what. I don't know what's going on right now, but bet. I'll take the deal, though. I can't take the Texans until I see them back up their words on the field, not get out of the words.
You're Chargers, and I'm going to take the Texans.
I'm taking the Chargers. Do I have to give you points, or is it straight up?
We're just betting a little bit of beverage, and
okay.
I don't know what I really want to eat from that place, but you pick okay. Something. I'll eat.
Well, I won't have to pick. I feel like the Texans got my back on this one. That even if
I live about 3 blocks from the Raising Cane's in Montrose. Nice. I will run through there. And Raising Cane's, if you're listening, give Jason a call.
Houston Football Show at Gmail. There are a couple advertising spots left open. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I didn't think about that. Great, Aaron. You pick up quick. I like it. All right, Aaron, thank you for your time. Go enjoy your evening with your lovely wife. I see, Yoda.
All right, buddy. Have a great night.
All right, take care, Aaron. All right, that's Aaron Wilson. He's got the upset pick, money line it if you're riding with Aaron Wilson this week on the Texans at home against the Chargers. I'm going to come up in the last couple segments of this show by myself here. Before we do that, though, let's hear from our sponsors.
Prime Social Poker Club opens daily at 10 a.m. and doesn't close until the last person leaves. Now, that's 24/7, 365 days a year, so you can always get your poker game on at Prime. Also, daily, free play starting at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. with happy hour from 4 to 9 p.m. They have daily and nightly tournaments with buy-in starting as low as $60 and going as high as $5,000. Now, check this out. Guaranteed prize money as large as $2 million. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Prime Social Poker Club here locally in Houston, 7801 Westheimer. We've told you about the endless insights at Inside Edge, but let us tell you about the real gold mine. They're 5-star picks. And in the 2021 NFL season, Inside Edge went 34-14 against the spread for a success rate of 70.8. And now you have access to these 5-star picks for only $20 per pick, or get the deal of the lifetime. Every 5-star pick for the entire year for only $149. Even better, our listeners get a discount of 10% on that access by using code Houston. That's code Houston.
All right, we're back here for a couple more segments, so just hang with me here on the Houston Football Show. Thank Aaron Wilson for coming on. And if you missed it somehow, I don't know how you could, Aaron Wilson calls his money line pick this week. Danger. I'm sure he's got us locked in on the betting board there. Our first bet of the season. He's got Texans straight up. So if you want to ride with him, take that money line this week. I'm going with the Chargers on that one. On this bet here, and I was on the Texans to beat the Colts week 1, and people thought I was crazy when they were minus 8.5. Thought they would lose week 2 to the Broncos, but they had an opportunity to prove me wrong when they were 10-point underdogs. And yet again, they let the Broncos come back. Week 3, didn't think it would be a blowout. Thought it'd be a close game like it was, but I thought the Texans couldn't lose this game. There's no way they could lose this game. No passing attack. Then you lose David Montgomery. Your top cornerback on the opposing team, Jalen Johnson, is out, and you still found out the way to lose. And the teams you're losing to are some of the lowest scoring teams in the league. You're not playing Justin Herbert and these guys. And I know Justin Herbert's banged up, but the Colts are the 31st scoring offense, 13.3 points a game through 3 games. Broncos, 30th. That's next to last and third from last. And Broncos, 14.3 points per game. Chicago Bears, the highest scoring offense at 17.3 points per game, 21st in the league. And you still figure out a way to be up at halftime or even in the third quarter in some of these games and blow it. I can't buy in on that. And one of my biggest issues, and on social media and earlier in the show as well, I've talked about the Rex Burkhead situation. Aaron did a good job talking about him being a vet. He has the relationships with the guys like him in the locker. All that's well and good, but Aaron also talked about it being a results-driven business. Rex Burkhead is not a talented star running back, not a backup number 2 running back. On a really good team, he's probably a 4. On a really bad team, he's probably a 3. He's a 1B here. Week 1, had more carries and played 30 more snaps than Dameon Pierce, who's your starting running back. Week 1 through 3, he's the 7th most targeted running back in the NFL at 32 years old. At no point was Rex Burkhead ever confused for a receiving back. I think he's averaging like 5.5 yards a carry. His longest reception, 16 targets, is 8 yards. The proof's in the pudding. The film matches up perfectly with the stats. And so my issue with this, the players, Aaron talked about this earlier. I've talked about it before. The players, the coaches have shown accountability all season, whether you like it or not. When they've made mistakes, they've come out there and Pep says, I got to call better plays. Lovey says, we got to tackle better. This is on me. The guys are taking accountability. The players, after they make mistakes, they're readily made available to the media, where Justin Britt, Jalen Petrie, every guy on the team takes accountability. My problem is the Rex situation deserves accountability. Whoever's making this decision, this is not a football decision. This is a personal allegiance to a guy. And I guess the pitch goes something like this. Hey, Rex, you're over 30 years old. Nobody's going to sign a 30-year-old running back as more than a depth piece to come to camp. Why don't you come down here with us in Houston? We don't expect to be good for the next couple years, and we'll let the fans watch you have a career high one season in carries, and the next season have 50% of your career high the first 3 games in targets. We're going to make you a lead back one year. We're going to make you a lead receiving back, top 7 in targets through 3 weeks the next year. This is just allegiance. This is professional allegiance between friends. And if that's what you're doing, it's fine. But when you have players and coaches accountable of their mistakes, laid out to the media like meat on a slab to own their mistakes each week to go to film, where's the person making the decision to oblige by their personal relationship with Rex? Because this isn't production value. Have somebody tell me Rex is getting 16 targets when this was planned for going into the season. There wasn't injuries that hit the running back position outside of Darius Anderson and Marlon Mack. Oh, lo and behold, 32 carries in the last 2 years didn't work out. Who saw that coming? The issue here is this is what you wanted. And now if you tell me, if you come out and say, hey, we're tanking, we've got all these picks coming up, we want a top pick this year and really go for it next year, I'm good with it. But these players aren't going to be good with it. They're out there, and even though they're making mistakes, they're trying their best to win these games. They're wearing their heart on their sleeves and eating. The coaches, are wearing their heart on their sleeves and wanting to win these games. They're not trying to lose these games. And then you come up and you're like, oh, you got a chance to lose. So what do? Every play was a running play to Dameon Pierce against the Bears on this one drive when they needed to score, and they went down and got a touchdown. You know what the solution is. Feed the talent. You knew it so much that every play on that drive was a running play, every single play, and it ended in a touchdown. But you go away from it. On 3rd and 1s, you're running RPOs with a struggling second-year quarterback on the road, and you know how he plays on the road? No, the outcome isn't the issue. The decision's the issues. And when you're throwing 16 targets, he's the second most targeted player on your team is Rex Burkhead. That's not a bad X's and O decision. Let me ask you this question if you're listening. Let's just be common sense here. I'm going to give you options. Option 1, Rex Burkhead is getting this much workload the last 2 years, and we'll just say this year because some of the coaches have changed. So don't worry about him having the most carries in his careers at 31 last year. Let's talk about this year where he's the 7th most targeted running back. 7th most targeted running back in the passing game, and 2nd most targeted player on the Texans team through 3 weeks. Let's talk about that. Do you think Pep Hamilton is bamming the table saying, guys, I don't care how talented Dameon Pierce is. I don't care that he's more efficient in the passing game. His pass protection's great. All I care about is this Rex Burkhead guy. We have to keep him involved. He's such a nice guy. Or option B, Lovie Smith. Hey, guys, this Rex Burkhead guy, Pep, you got to put him in there. You got to get him involved. He's such a great dude. I don't care about winning these tied games late. I want Rex Burkhead. I can depend on him to get me 2 yards. If we need 2 yards, Rex Burkhead will get us 2 yards. If we need 4 yards, Rex Burkhead will get us 2 yards. This is what it is at this point, that these are not football decisions. So whoever's decision, so let's give you option C. Someone else is making the decision that Rex Burkhead is going to be this heavily involved. Then whether it's to not put the workload on Pierce or whatever it may be, or just do right by Burkhead because you don't think you're going to be doing good, you're sabotaging your players. And the problem with that is put you to the point now with these mistakes with Burkhead and others, and it's not just Burkhead. The guy's probably a great dude. I mean, if he wants to have a venti green something with Aaron, I'm all for him having a genty tea from Starbucks or whatever. I'm probably messing it up. Whatever y'all drink at Starbucks for $10 and call it coffee or something. Might be a great guy. I talk about football. I talk about X's and O. I watch as the film. I'm telling you, this is not a football decision. Logically, it's not. And because of some of these non-football decisions, allegiance to personal relationships, the Texans are 0-2-1 when they really should be 3-0. And that would be the storyline. And so if it continues to play out this week and you lose to the Chargers and you lose to the Jags, who are playing stellar football right now on both sides of the ball, you lose to the Jags before the bye week, you're looking at 0-4-1 at the bye. What do you think these players are going to give you back on the field when they realize that you're not completely balled in and they're taking full accountability? That's going to be backfiring, and that's going to be worth watching there. So all I'm going to say, because it's not a football move. I need somebody to tell me it's a football move and explain it to me. That, oh, Pierce fumbled twice in that game. If he fumbled 10 times and the option is Rex Burkhead, give me Dameon Pierce with an eye patch or broken ankle and the possibility of a third fumble. Because that's the guy who's getting things done. Dameon Pierce averaged 2.5 yards after contact. Do you realize that's what Rex Burkhead is basically giving you when there's holes there, when there's running lanes there? It's not a contest. So you're sabotaging your own team. You can't tell me you can't upgrade and bring in a receiving back like everyone else who's on that top 7 most targeted running back list, just top 10. You can't tell me you can't upgrade that position. It's on purpose. It's intentional. At this point, Dare, Royce Freeman, Jared Dokes, I would be willing to see anybody else that you need to give a breather to, but don't sell to me. We trust Rex. There's a lot of guys that you could trust to be mediocre that aren't getting carries in one possession football games, aren't getting targeted second on the team, second most targets on the team. All right, lastly on this Chargers game, before I look at the rookie review here in the last segment after a break, can Houston win? Absolutely. They can win, but it's a different question. Chargers have the worst rushing attack. Houston could take Stingley and really get physical and man him with Mike Williams, and I think that's in his wheelhouse. Nelson on, whether you put him on Josh Palmer or Keenan Allen, and take Desmond King and put on the other, Palmer and Allen are PPR type guys, points per receptions going fantasy verbiage, meaning that these are high volume guys that you're going to hit high percentage passes. Mike Williams is the death stroke, and the Texans have been giving up big plays. Reverse the Equanimous St. Brown. I mean, he's just the 52-yarder to Khalil Herbert. And Jonathan Owens, one of the guys, the epitome with him and Stingley of wrapping up tackles, making the tackle and everything else. For him to miss a tackle when he rarely does on that opening rush for Khalil Herbert of like 50-plus yards, and he misses right at about a 10-yard mark. I mean, he gave up 40-plus yards after that missed tackle. And I hate to pinpoint him because, he wraps up everything. But on that one, that missed tackle was pivotal. And you can't see that from the guy who's leading the NFL in tackles, and it's great for him in wrapping up when other players in that secondary are missing tackles. You don't have that benefit. You've got to have Stingley and Owens continue to be lockdown tacklers. All right, Chargers one-dimensional, but we already saw with the Bears one-dimensional. The Texans can still blow that game. I want to see Stingley on Mike Williams. Let Nelson, and if Keenan Allen's playing, let him get on. Even if it's got to go down into the slot, let him get on Keenan or Desmond King there, or Josh Palmer. You can put Nelson on Josh Palmer as well. So main thing, though, I think you take Stingley, and I know you're going to play a lot of zone looks, but moving away from zone, I would play a lot more man with Stingley on Mike Williams. They don't have a running game. What if you take away the one big threat in Mike Williams? Yeah, you got Gerald Everett at tight end you're going to have to pay attention to, and former Texans DeAndre Carter. With his return ability, he could be somebody on a crosser, underneath, drag route, something like that could do danger, especially with the missed tackles that you see, the issues here with the Texans team. Now, Rasheem Greenleaf's played well. We talked about how pivotal he was, increased his reps. Grenard's reps decreased with Rasheem being so pivotal in the run game at that DN position. With them not having a great rushing attack, I see Grenard getting a lot more reps. Same with Hughes. And the injuries for Sean Slater, that's a talented young left tackle. With him being out of there, Corey Linsley might be back. If not, you got a backup center in there this game as well. The D-line should be able to take advantage of this. Jerry Hughes, Khalil Mack, vets, both guys are tied for second in the NFL with 4 sacks, half a sack out the lead behind Alex Highsmith. Hughes faces a backup, and while Khalil Mack faces TNT, Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, these two of the best bookend tackles in the NFL, especially when we're talking pass protection. The benefit there is for Hughes to have the more productive day. And then you also got Grenard in rotation with Joey Bosa, his partner in crime, being out for Khalil Mack. And then you go to the safeties. Now, these teams, Derwin James, and I know he plays some linebacker, some safety, moves all over, but Derwin James leads the team in tackles just like Jonathan Owens leads the Texans in tackles. But Derwin James is more of like a Jalen Petrie type that is just everywhere, instinctual, makes plays, and he can cost you games. Petrie gets better each week and learns from his mistakes. I mean, the dude is just a massive talent and passionate about it and humble when he makes the mistakes to feed off it and learn from it so he never feeds that feeling again. Derwin James, I mean, this guy is just a complete beast. Houston can't let the Chargers safety change the game from Houston's favor. And they got to cut out the big plays. The running game can't gash you. You're playing the worst rush defense in the NFL. You cannot get gashed by this. So they should be able to play to the one-dimensional passing attack. And I would put a man over the top, let Stingley man up Mike Williams, and make Mike Williams have to beat Stingley on big plays. And let everyone else just focus on stopping the rest of the attack, the underneath stuff as well. So there's a path. I understand why Aaron's saying the Texans win this game. There's a path for the Texans to win this game. My problem is what they've shown me through 3 games. I can't buy it. I'm taking the Chargers in this one. I'm not going to put a score on this. With all the injuries on the Chargers, I don't know how it's going to play. Mills could play better at home, but I can't. When people show you who they are, trust them, believe them. And the Texans have showed me that they're a team that will play with you and even be better than you, or beat you, I should say, for the first 2 to 3 quarters. But in the fourth quarter, it's time to go home. And so I can't buy them when I get on against a team like Chargers. Prove me wrong. It's on you. All right, before we get to the last segment of the night, it'll be a quick one. Let me tell you about our title sponsors, Inside Edge. Now, you've heard us talk about Inside Edge. They started back during the Moneyball. If you watch the Moneyball movie, 27 years ago, they started with the data and analytics revolution in professional sports. They've got over 27 professional franchises that uses Inside Edge analytics and data, and we use it here as well on the Houston Football Show with them as one of our title sponsors. It helps you in DFS, it helps you in gambling, it helps you on broadcast, it helps you in PR department, and that's what they do. They sell this product throughout different websites, PR departments, professional teams, and now it's readily available for you too for free at myinsideedge.com. Also, though, if you do like to bet on the games and you want a high success rate, you're not going to find anything better than the My Inside Edge gold picks. 5-star picks at My Inside Edge. Last year, against the spread, they hit on 71% against the spread. And so these picks, if you want to just dabble a little bit, they're only $20 a pick. But I'm going to tell you, the real deal with them is get the entire season for $149. All of their 5-star picks, 71% hit rate last year. Do yourself a favor. Go check them out at myinsideedge.com. All right, last segment of the night. Let's get through it here. We were talking a little bit earlier on the rookie review. We went through a couple different guys, but I wanted to kind of touch on a couple of these other rookies here at the end. Kenyon Green, similar Petrie, he's learning so fast. He picks things up. He's developing. He's playing at such a high level. When you see him pull, he pancakes a guy on a pull. Excuse me. He pancakes a guy on a pull. He's mauling in the running game. And I'd probably say the biggest area of growth is in pass pro, that he still has to get there and develop and move, to show that consistency there in pass protection. But last week he was destroyed in pass pro on the spin move, and then also on stunts he would recognize late. Now this week, in his hands, the first couple weeks, and in the preseason pass protection, he'd almost be dead hand. He'd put them out there kind of as guide hands to put up there, but there's no punch, there's no fighting, there's no usage in it. Well, this week you see more of it. He's starting to do that punch. You'll see Titus and Tunsil at practice working with the 1-2 punch, hitting the mitts, almost like boxers with the open hand, and working on that punch. And I'm guessing that's what Kenyon's been working on, because he looks like Titus and Tunsil, or at least a developing model of it on the pass pro this past week. We're trying to work and punch, and that's all you want to see. The reason you look at the plays and you talk about the areas they need to improve on is, if you're a mid-first round pick and extremely talented like Kenyon or Petrie or Derek Stingley, you expect them to grow on this. You expect to see the mistakes, but you want to see the growth. I'm blown away at the expedition of the process, how expedited the process is, on the growth for these top 3 picks for the Texans: Derek Stingley Jr., Kenyon Green, and Jalen Petrie. Yes, they'll continue to make rookie mistakes. They'll get out of line, may give up a tackle, may be over aggressive, miss a tackle, whatever it may be. These guys are learning from their mistake from 1 week on film to the next week on film. They're taking those mistakes and they're developing the technique and the IQ, and they're learning from it instantly. And they're playing so many snaps and at such a high level as rookies that you expect there to be mistakes. Yes, the 8 missed tackles for Petrie, whatever it is now, yeah, that's a bit excessive. But you're starting to see the growth. Even though he had another missed tackle or 2 and gave up containment on the Herbert run, there's areas still there for growth. You're seeing that growth, and he's not missing the tackles in the same manner he was missing in week 1 and even in week 2. He's not coming up throwing a DJ Swearinger's shoulder tackle. Swearinger, you saw him do that as a rookie, like, oh, look at the big hit. And like, well, this is going to catch up with him. And then he did, because he kept wanting to live for the big hit. Petrie's already made the adjustment. He's tackling more like Jonathan Owens and Derek Stingley than he has at any point in his college career, preseason, and the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. Same with Kenyon. Kenyon's mauling in the running game, but when he got out there on a couple zone looks, wasn't sure on which guy to pick up, thinking a little bit too much. But he showed more confusion last week, and then growth and development and how he ran plays. I mean, the arrows, again, I hate to be so cliche, but the arrows point up on these guys, and I don't know where those arrows stop or where the elevator stops, so to speak. Stingley, I talked about him earlier. Not much more for me to add to this. Wasn't tried really a lot in this game. The Sutton big PI the week before and giving up some zone catches. They went after him a bit, but he made some plays with Sutton as well. It's great to see the response from him, because you don't see no lack of confidence in Derek Stingley Jr. Now, he's not outlandish. He's not going to be the one that's just barking at you and everything, but his game speaks volumes, and it speaks volumes in every level. His hands, his angles, his speed, the heart. He goes flying up one time, and there's a pulling guard, and he hits him right in the chest, knowing that there's no way for him to beat that block or make the tackle. But if he sacrifices his body, then the linebacker's going to come in and fill behind him, and that's exactly what he did without hesitation. Jalen Petrie does the same exact thing in that game against the Bears. Then when Herbert, I believe it was the big run play for Herbert where Owens misses the tackle, Stingley comes from the complete other side of the field. And like a vet, like you would expect to see a rookie, even a high first-round pick, to come flying full pace, try to make a tackle or something, and panic trying to cut off the yak. Stingley understood the play so much. He comes flying with the speed, with the proper angle. Then when he gets in close, instead of trying to make a careless tackle, giving up another extra yard or two at that point on a 50-plus yard play is worth it, rather than missing the tackle and giving up 20-plus yards or whatever was left before the end zone and a touchdown. He comes in, and Herbert, who had got many Texans players before that with a stiff arm, tries to put the stiff arm out there. Stingley bats it down violently, reaches out again, hits him down again to pull him in, and just basically bulldogs him into the dirt. This is a cornerback, a young 21-year-old cornerback in a big play, playing it like a vet. The dude's so well-rounded, has such the physique and talent and skill set and God-given ability in mind that if he hits on everything the way he's showing, I don't want to throw the comparisons out there. You know what I'm thinking about. All right, last two rookies, Thomas Booker, Troy Hairston. I like Troy Hairston, what he showed in camp, what he showed most of the part earlier this year. This was a game where he had a couple plays he'd rather have back. A lot of people talked about, that 3rd and 1. And down there in the goal line where if Texans get in, they score that touchdown. I think at that point it puts them up 24-20. They end up losing that game, losing that game by field goals. I mean, that could be the game-winning touchdown if you're not kicking a field goal there. So they settle for the field goal. But what happened on the play was in Dameon Pierce. Hairston comes up, tries to fill a gap, and he gets beat. He doesn't. The guy beats the block by Hairston, gets in there, and coming from the other end, Tunsil tries to get to the second level and gets beat by a linebacker. And both of these guys blow up Dameon Pierce. I mean, he's 2-3 yards dead in the backfield. It's not on the running back. And it's not on the play call by Pierce there. You need the guys to execute. And like I said, it's easy. Someone told me earlier, like, well, Tunsil doesn't try in the running game. I don't know what they're watching. Tunsil, if you're going to complain about a lot of guys on the Texans, Tunsil's not going to be one of them for me. This dude is an exceptional talent. He's actually gotten better this year. And while he did have 2 blocks on the second level in the running game that got away from him, it wasn't from lack of trying. Technique still has to be there. He still has to improve in that area. But I mean, he walls off like a damn wall. I mean, those D linemen aren't getting over across from him on those running plays. And he did well getting the second level on many other plays. It's just the pivotal plays, the big plays, that's what sticks out in our minds. And errors for the offensive line sticks out. You make 10 great plays in a row as an offensive lineman, you miss one bad one, everyone's going to remember that one. And so I wouldn't get too much down on Tunsil. Hairston on that play, though, he had that play. He had a couple plays in this game where he missed some blocks. That one from him and Tunsil did really hurt the Texans, though. Thomas Booker, he had a play in the fourth quarter where he really finally showed his potential. He hadn't shown much before that. Fourth quarter, need to stop a run, coming to his size. He had get-off power and push, and Jonathan Grenard right there next to him. They kill it. Grenard's got the edge and goes and finishes the tackle there on Herbert. Hopefully Thomas Booker is figuring out, because earlier in that game, and for the most part early in his career, he is not forcing his will on opposing offensive linemen. You see guys, especially guys with the thighs and build and strength of Thomas Booker, you expect them on that defensive line position to be able to get flat down the line and make plays. That's what you expect. Malik Collins did it last week. I illustrated a play on it. But Booker's not doing that yet. He's getting moved 2, 3, 4 yards off the spot while he's trying to get flat down the line. Even when he's holding stout to position, his change of directions limited him to be able to close on those running backs and finish tackles. And as some of it, maybe he's still thinking a little bit too much more. But that play in the fourth quarter, though, one of the last things we saw from one of his best plays in his young career. Like I said, hopefully he's figuring out. He's not as thinking as much and is starting to click. But that's our thoughts this week on the Week 3 review in the NFL on the Texans game, and the look ahead to Week 4 against the Chargers at home. Justin Herbert against Davis Mills, year 2. Know how it ended last year. Can they repeat the feat at NRG this week? For Aaron Wilson, Jonathan Danger Cole, Mark Larson, I'm Jason Braddock, and that's episode 10 of the Houston Football Show from Prime Social and Inside Edge.
This has been the Houston Football Show, brought to you by Prime Social Poker Club and Inside Edge.